Good evening. Welcome to Larry Rinker Golf Live. I'm pleased to be joined tonight by my longtime friend, short game guru, Stan Utley. How you doing, Stan?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
It's always great to have you on, Stan. I've learned so much from you through the years. It was probably late 90s when you started working with players while you were out on the road competing?
It was actually 2000 whenever I kind of said, wow, I think it's time to charge somebody for a golf lesson.
And who were some of those?
I think we always helped our buddies along the
Right.
way.
No, we did. So who were some of the early ones that you said, hey, here's a bill for my time with you?
Well, I don't know about that, but one of the first guys that asked me to help him out on the whatever we call the Corn Ferry Tour now was Pat Bates. And I was good friends with Jeff Braho. Every now and then I'd give him a peek. And way back when I was hanging out with Brandel Chambly and Dillard Pruitt and Fred Wadsworth. We were always trading secrets early in our careers.
And so I was thinking about tonight, and I think you'll agree with this statement. We kind of have a way that we teach putting and short game, but every now and then we get that student that we have to think outside the box, that we have to maybe tell them to do something that if you wrote it down and somebody looked at it, say, I don't think that's what you really want to do. And I'll share something that I've done recently where I've had people with short game using a lot of hands and wrist. And obviously you can do that if you really want to get cute and really flop it and really spin it. But a lot of people don't have the ability to do that consistently. So I said to him, hey, I want to see you swing where you feel no wrist when you pitch the ball. Now that haunts me saying that. But it's amazing how they had a better blend of the arms, hands, and wrist and the backswing and the forward swing. And they were able to get the shaft back to where they needed the shaft a lot quieter at impact. And all of a sudden they went to where they became more consistent with their shot. So I was just wondering if you had anything like that you've used with your students that's helped them.
Well, I think I'm known for a guy that teaches swing the face square to the arc on putting. And so many people have heard, I teach people to rotate the face. So I have people sometimes come that are actually rotating the face. So I would tell them to take it back hooded.
Right.
Which we're creating feels. And when I say something so out of the box, I do my best job to try to have them know what I mean by neutral. Just today, I gave a young man a lesson and he had overcooked rotating the face. So good players, we're always overcooking something. So once again, I had to explain to him, I am not rotating the face. The face is swinging, traveling square to an arc based on a tilted shaft plane.
Right.
But sometimes what we have to tell them is, like you said, it's definitely out of the box.
Right. Yeah, I like that a lot. The putter face opens and closes to the target line, but to the arc of the putter, which is created by, that incline plane of the shaft of the club, it's just swinging around that axis, isn't it?
That's what I believe.
Yeah, I believe that too.
I call it simple math.
But that's why when people use that word pendulum, I say, well, it's not a pendulum because a pendulum swings straight back and through, and a pendulum hangs at a 90-degree angle.
Right.
So it's not a pendulum, and it's also not a pendulum timing, because a pendulum timing, the amount of time the backswing takes is the same as the forward swing takes. And according to the Blast Motion people, they say the average tour player's backswing takes 0.6 seconds, forward swing takes 0.3. So that relationship of time, the backswing and the forward swing, is a 2-to-1 ratio.
But I would beg that question saying that who's the best long putter? Who do you think puts the long putts the best?
Jack Nicklaus.
Jack Nicklaus. So in the modern era, people think Jordan Spieth putt long putt's good. And his backswing's really fast. So his backswing time to downswing is not 2-to-1.
It's not.
Not even close.
Do you know what it is?
I've heard it was 1, but I don't believe that.
Yeah, I don't believe that either.
But I do say when I watch people, they tend to err on too slow back. So I'm always encouraging people to be, 2.0 or less, not 2.0 or more when it comes to timing.
Right. Well, I had this lady, I don't use the Blast Motion that often, but it was a time when I was using it. And she's taking this putter back so slow and then goosing it. She was over 3-to-1. And she said to me, well, I thought I was supposed to take this putter back really slow.
We're teaching against some information that wasn't quite accurate a lot.
Yeah, we are. And I think that's where you and I have been able to carve a little business out of giving some different information that at the end of the day, it's all about what works, isn't it?
And every player's got its own style. Like I have my own style. I don't maybe do exactly what I would tell you would be the model. And I think our job is to know the model, but find what the player does most repetitively that's functional.
Right. And I believe that's their Men in Black stroke. And Men in Black stroke means, remember the movie Men in Black?
I do.
Where when they caught the aliens, they put the cone over their head and they went brain dead. So I want the brain dead Men in Black stroke because I think that's the one they're going to be able to repeat.
Right.
And the natural timing shows up, whatever it is for them. I've been told by my friends like David Orr and Dr. Rob Neal, who have 3D and have used Sam Putt Lab, and they say, hey, everybody strokes like their thumbprint. They're all different. None of us have the same stroke.
I got to visit with a man the other day that said he was a world-class kayak racer. So timing of the stroke was critical when he was coaching. And he said, if you just started counting and you timed 60 seconds, every how many times you would, like I might get to 68 in a minute. Somebody else might get to 80. Somebody else might get to 59. Well, that would kind of tell you your beat. So I know my putting stroke time is about 890 milliseconds. And that would come out to my 67 or 68 beats in a minute. So that was kind of a new way. I haven't tested it a lot, but it was, validation to we kind of all have our own beat.
Right.
And how do you measure the beat without golfing, right?
Right.
We have this beat that where golf might mess up that we're looking for.
Yeah. And you saying you're 890 milliseconds, that sounds like pretty much tour average, what Blast Motion says that the total.
Yeah, I'm pretty close.
That takes 0.9 seconds, the total stroke. But I think that's another thing, Stan. We know what tour average is in so many things today. And God forbid the people out there that are teaching everybody to try and be tour average.
Right.
Because
exactly.
It's an average. It's an average. And So I think as long as you're fairly close to that and you actually understand what numbers mean. I remember I was in seeing Henry Johnson, founder and inventor of Flight Scope. I mean, he's the first guy to come up with a launch monitor. And we were talking, and I was talking about, I thought my numbers were too far apart. And he said to me, he said, "Now, Larry, how many second hands on your watch?" I said, 60. He goes, "How many degrees is that?" I go, 360. He goes, "So how many degrees between the 12 and the first second hand?" I said, 6. He goes, "Doesn't sound like a whole lot, does it?" So I think, we get hung up like, oh, I'm swinging 3 to the right with my driver. Oh, that's too much. I need to be under 2. Or so I think there's definitely some things there. And, those of us that have been math guys our whole life, we tend to think, oh, there's only one correct answer or number, but there's variances there. And I think all of us really just want to make sure people are in the variances. And, John Sinclair, who's been on this show, has done a lot of 3D work with PGA Tour player swings and shows the variances between, the different players. And I think it's important to understand that, don't you?
It's interesting. I just spent the last few hours with a young lady that works with Randy Smith, and she has a TrackMan. And one of her comments was, kind of 3 degrees out or 3 degrees left, just find yourself in there somewhere. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. And
Right.
I'm not sure we're always knowing exactly what it is, even when we have TrackMan.
Right. Well, that's something that you said on my Sirius XM radio show a few years ago. I think it shocked me a little bit, but probably shocked our listeners, is when you said you knew your stroke was right where you wanted it to be when you returned the putter face 1.7 degrees open. This
But
idea
that was
that,
relative to where I aimed it,
yeah. And
because I aim bad.
well, you aim where you need to aim to start the ball on the line. You need to start it on to make the putt.
That's exactly right.
And so this idea that everybody's got to aim perfectly is one of the myths of putting. It's
And
grandpa's gun. I'm stealing it from David Orr. Grandpa's gun. Aim grandpa's gun and it shoots a little high right of the beer can. Okay,
that's
I got to
right.
aim a little low left and I hit it. Okay. But I really
Grandpa
believe,
didn't.
I believe,
Grandpa didn't miss either.
no, but I believe that great putters learned how to aim their stroke. I mean, when did you find out you were a left aimer and that's how your stroke worked?
Yeah, it was way past when I won a tour event. I had a laser out, and Rob Akins caught me using the laser to aim. He chewed me out for no good at all. He was so mad at me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I don't aim straight." He said, "Well, how do you putt?" He said, "Well, quit trying to aim straight. You putt fine." I remember the day. I remember the day I did that. I was in Memphis with Rob. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. And how did that change your teaching?
Made me better. And I think we all get better. Like you've already mentioned half a dozen people that you're hanging out with, and I do the same thing all the time.
Yeah, well, I continue to learn from my friends. I have to say, the people I've had on this Facebook Live show and the guests that I had for 6.5 years on my Sirius XM radio show, I learned from them. I wanted to have people on like you and other people that I've learned from and share what I've learned from you with the audience, all the people out there, because we want people to enjoy this game more. We want them to have more fun. And this whole idea that you got to lock everything up in putting and be rigid and putt with your shoulders and not use your hands and wrist, and keep some of this stuff that I think you and I are on another page on with those things. I don't think we believe it's true. It's kind of like this idea that we hold the angle and turn through and keep the face open with a pitch shot. Yeah, I think you would agree. You and James Siegman and myself and a few other short game teachers, we believe in a throwing motion, letting the club head go, letting that club have a free orbit. But yet so many people are teaching pull, turn, hold the face open.
I know the best part of that is it keeps us busy.
Well, it does. And I really believe it was interesting. Hal Sutton has really done some cool things on Twitter. If you haven't seen Hal, you should follow him. He's got some great insights. One, a great player, really, if he could have played a little better in the middle of his career, he'd probably be in the Hall of Fame. But Hal was talking about, this idea of the big muscles versus the little muscles. And hey, I think he was asking for people's opinions. And the more I think about it, the more I teach Stan, it's really been a travesty, this idea that for the big muscles control the little muscles. I think you need to understand what you do with your arms, hands, and wrist. Yes, there are going to be times you might say, hey, make a little bigger turn or shift your lower body. You do something and talk about the bigger muscles a little bit, but you've worked with beginners just like I have. And see if they can't find the ball here, it doesn't matter if the big muscles move perfectly.
So my favorite thing that happened in that realm was I had a chance to do a clinic for a bunch of golf riders. And so I started the clinic was I asked for a volunteer for a bad chipper. And that was easy I had lots of choices. So the guy comes out and I hand him my tube that I pick balls with. And I just said, okay, grab it with your right hand and knock the ball out on the green. And he knocked the ball out about 6 feet from the hole. And I said, well, that was pretty good. Now, here's your wedge. And he double hit it behind the people that was standing behind him. And I said, so what was different? And he said, well, I was too wristy. And I said, well, you were too wristy too late. I said, when you took my tube, you threw the end of the tube at the ball first. When you hit your ball, you threw the grip at the ball first, and then you wristed it after you hit it the first time and caught it and knocked it behind the people standing behind you. So I said, look, wristy's not bad, but wristy after you hit it the first time is not the time to be wristy.
Right.
And I kind of define that now as I think one of the most critical things to good short game, and this might not be true with the full swing, but if you're swinging short game stuff, I call it early club head acceleration. I don't want to be accelerating. I don't want increased acceleration at the ball. I want decreased acceleration at the ball. Now that's different than deceleration. So you have declining acceleration, you have increasing acceleration. Good short game is decreasing acceleration. It isn't increasing acceleration.
Right.
And it's been fun to kind of get my head around that and start to teach it because I saw that on Sam Putt Lab years ago, but now I understand it.
Well, don't you feel like that's what your old coach, the gentleman you worked with,
Mr. Lanning,
we talked about dead weight?
That's it. I don't know how he found out or how he knew it, but I can see the measurement now, but there's lots of ways to measure what's going on, and to find the truth of being measured now is very validating of what he told me.
Well, that's what really I say about all this stuff and our opinions that we have and people have. It's kind of like, well, let's get to the truth. What really happens? I remember when I bought a camera 9.5 years ago, I found out what I really did, not what I thought I did. And so it's pretty neat showing your students what they really do, not what they think they do. And now we can have a conversation about what's going on. The tricky part and why they need us is, well, what do they need to feel to do that? And I know you do a great job interviewing your students because you want to find out what they're thinking. I think you even might say to them, Well, tell me what you would tell me if you were giving me a lesson on hitting this shot.
That's my best question. Because if I can get them to tell me what they would coach somebody doing, I know what they're thinking.
Now, I think it's great. And it's funny, Stan, I'll ask people, what are you thinking in your swing? And they say some things, but they don't say one thing about the forward swing. They don't give it up. And it's almost like I have to ask a few more questions. Then finally it comes out what they're thinking. And I finally get to the bottom of it. And, it's interesting with an upper core player, if they're trying to lag and rotate and trying to be Dustin Johnson or Daniel Berger, who won last week, 2 low core players. Well, that's great. If you can clear your hips and have your hips rotated like those two at impact, that's the right information. But unfortunately, if you're like you and I, Stan, and you've received that AARP card in the mail, we're upper core, and we gotta get that club back in front of us and feel the club kind of going past us and our arm swing turning our chest through. It's just 2 totally different things. It's been amazing with working with Dr. David Wright and his information and finding out that most of us are upper core.
How in the world would you know I'm upper core, Larry?
Because I've measured you. You came
Oh
in.
yeah, I come to see you, didn't I?
You came to see me. Can you imagine, people, that you're taking a lesson from me and Stan Utley shows up? And not only does he show up, he gives his 2 cents too. So
I've had 3
one
different
special
people want to
lady
I've had 3 different people want to marry your student.
Yeah, she was a cutie. She's from West Palm, but I had this student in for a first time 3-hour short game lesson, and Stan Utley shows up. So it was pretty neat. And boy, Stan,
That's because I was trying to steal your information, Larry.
well, you can steal all mine. I tell you, I stole something from you that day, though, because you put your hand out and you had her take her putter and hit your hand with the putter, and her hands just went like this to hit your hand and square her putter face against the hand. And she felt her hands in that putter face square. I've done that with people. That's something I stole from you.
We're just passing it around. That's all we're doing. We ain't stealing. And the fun part is, I realize every day that we love helping people.
Yes, we do.
And I had an incredible experience this week. There's a gentleman named Buck who's famous for coaching horsemanship. And I got to ask him, I hung out with him at breakfast a couple days ago, and I asked him, are you getting better at teaching? He said, a lot better. And it was, it motivated me. I know I'm always trying to get better, but to see somebody at the top of his, profession and skill sets working hard to get better, I think that's what makes it fun for you and I. And I'm shocked sometimes when I tell my student I've just gone and taken a lesson. They're like, you take a lesson? I'm like, I take lessons all the time.
Yeah. Well, we think we've seen something, we've seen it all, and then something happens and it's like, no, there's something else. I had something happen recently I hadn't seen before. I bet you're going to say you've seen this. So I had a guy setting up for a bunker shot. He was open with his stance. He was aimed to the left, and he had his club face left of the target. And he's swinging down his toe line. So take a guess how he got the club face to the right of the target so he could hit the ball at the target. He slid with his body and got the shaft way forward. He leaned the shaft so far forward that it made the face way to the right. He and another guy did that. Their hips were like this far forward when they hit the ball. I've never seen that before. Have you seen that?
That sounds hard to do.
Yeah, I know, but they were doing it. It was amazing.
They were getting it out.
They were getting it out, but you know how much that would shallow it doing that.
Right. Sounds like some fats and some skulls.
Yes, it does sound like some fats and skulls. But that's another reason why I love the camera. There's things I'm going to see on video that I maybe got fooled with my naked eye. And it's always neat to have the camera as backup just to see some things. And thanks to our friend James Seekman teaching me about steeps and shallows and getting a balance of those steeps and shallows, we really can help people by getting them steeper or getting them shallower, can't we?
And talking to the gentleman that teaches horsemanship, he said he also teaches roping.
Oh,
And so people want to know how to throw a fancy loop. And he said, there's a couple things that you should get really good at before you get fancy. And I thought about chipping, and it's like, when the angles match up and you actually can make solid contact, then we can talk about advancing.
right.
But until we can get our student to hit it solid, there's only limited stuff we can work on before they can find the ball in the club face.
Well, I had this young man, a 14-year-older, this past week that was too fancy and having trouble. And that's the one that I said, hey, let's feel like you have no wrist. You wouldn't believe he had no wrist. He set the club and let the club release going through. But it was amazing how, being less fancy, all of a sudden his consistency went way up. And you can use a lot of hands and wrists, Stan, and as good as you are with a wedge in your hand, but how often do you get fancy when you play golf? Only when you have to, right?
Not very often.
Yeah. Don't have to get that fancy. Well, Stan, always great to have you on the show, my friend. Larry Rinker Golf Live is on Thursday, 7:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern. There is Stan Utley, my guest tonight. You can follow him on Twitter at Stan Utley. You can go to his website, stanutley.com. There's Stan and I at the PGA show a few years ago. I'd like to thank my sponsors, Titleist FootJoy, the Ritz-Carlton Golf Club Orlando, and the Red Sky Golf Club in Vail, Colorado. Stan, always great to catch up with you. Thanks for coming to see me. You came to see me in Vail. You've come to Orlando. I've got to come see you at Maroon Creek this summer, I guess.
You got to drive over and hang out.
I do. I'm going to come watch you teach.
Aspen's not that bad.
No. But I'm going to have to come over and watch you and hang out.
Thanks for having me on, Larry.
All right. Thanks for being on. Till next Thursday. Keep swinging.